The illusion has finally shattered. For years, the world accepted the image of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle as a flawless modern family, two children, a glamorous California lifestyle, and a story polished to perfection. But that narrative is now beginning to unravel after a woman the public has never heard from has stepped forward. She identifies only as anonymous. Her real name is concealed for her own safety, yet her presence is direct, steady, and unfiltered. No voice distortion, no blurred face, no uncertainty. She is here to reveal a truth she says she has been forced to carry in silence, a truth she believes could completely reshape what we think we know about the Sussex children. According to Anonymous, she is the woman who carried and gave birth to both Archie and Lilibet. Not a donor, not a clinical assistant, not a background figure, but the person who experienced both pregnancies while Meghan appeared publicly with a baby bump that Anonymous claims was never real. She says she was promised confidentiality, safety, and fair compensation. She was assured she would remain unidentified and protected once everything was finalized. But according to her, those promises were broken. "I wasn't treated like a mother," she says softly. "I wasn't even treated like a human being. I was treated like a vessel, something to be used." That sentence hangs heavily, like a warning. But now, Anonymous refuses to disappear, and she hasn't come forward empty-handed. She insists she possesses extensive evidence, not emotional claims, but documentation. She says the information came from a former employee tied to a Beverly Hills fertility clinic who decided the truth had been buried long enough. The files she describes include appointment records, embryo transfer schedules, doctor signatures, treatment charts, medical notes, all dated, all official, and all suspiciously aligned with the exact periods when Meghan publicly announced her pregnancies. According to Anonymous, the medical process began in late 2018, uncomfortably close to the moment Prince Harry and Meghan publicly announced they were expecting Archie. The timing, she says, is far too precise to dismiss. She recalls being contacted only a short time after the Sussex wedding, brought into secluded meetings, and given a lengthy legal agreement packed with clauses about secrecy, silence, and lifelong anonymity. She describes the entire arrangement as organized, discreet, and managed by individuals who clearly seemed familiar with this type of operation. But the most powerful part of her account isn't her description, it's what she presents. She lays out a medical timeline that mirrors the public royal timeline almost exactly. Every date, every procedure, every projected due date lines up with the story the world was told, creating the first major crack in the fairy tale narrative. Then Anonymous unveils the next set of evidence, and this time it hits much harder. She produces 2 ultrasound records, each labeled with her patient identification number, precise timestamps, and gestational details. One corresponds to a pregnancy in 2019, the other in 2020. Both align almost perfectly with the publicly known birth periods of Archie and Lilibet. And she doesn't stop there. She displays bank statements showing transfers, wire movements, and deposits funneled through shell companies registered in distant jurisdictions. According to insiders who examined the financial trail, the organizations involved appear linked to financial advisors historically associated with the Sussex network. These payments follow a pattern, one that Anonymous claims represents a compensation structure that was never fully honored. Finally, she reveals the most explosive document, a sealed non-disclosure agreement, thick, officially stamped, and allegedly handed to her under threats of devastating legal and financial consequences if she ever revealed the truth. Legal experts she later consulted suggested that parts of the contract may not have been enforceable across borders. Anonymous says that legal loophole is ultimately what gave her the courage to speak publicly now. But Anonymous reserves her most shocking revelation for the very end. She announces that she is willing to take a public DNA test carried out by an independent examiner with cameras documenting every step. She wants her DNA compared to Archie's and Lilibet's directly, no private labs, no lawyers filtering results, no tampering. She insists she isn't bluffing and wants the truth exposed for everyone to witness. With that declaration, the core of the story becomes unmistakable. A woman claiming to be the biological mother, a concealed medical journey, financial transactions showing compensation, a silencing contract, and now a DNA challenge the Sussexes cannot easily dismiss. Anonymous's statements cast an enormous shadow, but the real shock comes when people begin revisiting events from the past. Not rumors, but public appearances we all saw and never questioned. For years, Meghan Markle was photographed in elegant maternity outfits, hands gently cradling her stomach, presenting the image of a glowing, expectant mother. The public embraced it. The media celebrated it. The narrative seemed flawless. Yet something about those moments didn't fully align with the natural movement of a real pregnancy. One particular clip has now become impossible to ignore. During a filmed appearance, Meghan bends forward and her stomach seems to collapse inward, not shift naturally, but fold as though it were soft or adjustable. At the time, explanations ranged from camera angles to loose fabric, but with Anonymous's allegations now on the table, that moment feels different, more like a clue than an anomaly. If Anonymous carried Archie and Lilibet, then Meghan's bump wasn't her own. It was a visual stand-in for a pregnancy she wasn't experiencing. Anonymous even addresses that old footage directly, saying, "I told you it wasn't her pregnancy. It couldn't be because it was mine." Suddenly, every polished public moment, every strange inconsistency, every unanswered question takes on new weight. A pregnancy can be concealed, but childbirth leaves a trail. Yet, no one ever saw Meghan go into labor. No hospital sightings, no medical confirmations, no staff statements, no traditional post-birth photo ceremony that royal families typically uphold. In royal history, births are nearly as ceremonial as coronations, but in this case, the world saw nothing. William and Catherine followed royal tradition flawlessly 3 times. Each birth included the familiar hospital steps, cameras flashing, and smiling parents presenting their newborn to the world. But when it came to Harry and Meghan, that long-standing custom collapsed overnight. Instead of a hospital appearance, there was total silence. Instead of a proud photo call, viewers were given an awkward video of Harry speaking near horse stables, delivering what should have been historic news as if it were an informal update. Even then, many felt something was unusually hidden. The extreme secrecy seemed strange, but now, with Anonymous's claims rising to the surface, that silence appears less like a desire for privacy and more like an attempt to shield a larger truth. Insiders quietly suggest that the birth remained unseen because Meghan could not show up at a hospital for a delivery she never experienced. This is where the narrative stops being emotional and becomes logistical, almost impossible to dismiss. A birth without medical witnesses, a hospital stay without records, and a royal milestone that left no trace raises a new question. What exactly were they trying so hard to cover? Up until this point, most of the focus has been on Meghan and Anonymous. But the story soon shifts towards someone the public often views as incidental in the controversy, Prince Harry. According to Anonymous, Harry wasn't misled or unaware. She claims he was involved from the start, attending medical appointments, signing clinic paperwork, meeting her personally, knowing her identity, and approving each decision. She recalls, "He looked me in the eye." A simple line that completely redefines the narrative. If Harry wasn't a passive figure but an active decision-maker, the secrecy becomes a shared strategy, a coordinated effort between them both. Yet, behind the scenes, things appear to be fracturing. People close to the Sussexes say Harry is unraveling under the pressure, snapping at staff, cutting off longtime allies, obsessively monitoring potential leaks, and sinking deeper into emotional strain. Some suggest he never intended for the deception to grow this large, but once the line between privacy and fabrication blurred, it consumed them both. The prince who once believed he was safeguarding his family now appears trapped by the very secret he helped create. While Harry and Meghan remain silent, Buckingham Palace is anything but calm. Behind its walls, senior advisors, legal specialists, and constitutional scholars are reportedly holding discreet meetings, reviewing documents, examining old precedents, and preparing for outcomes no one ever expected. Their urgency comes from the fact that Anonymous's claims do more than cause embarrassment. They challenge the very structure of the monarchy. Royal succession requires that heirs be born of the body, meaning the royal mother must physically give birth unless a surrogate is formally declared through official, transparent procedures. No concealed arrangements, no unregistered births, no private deals. Archie and Lilibet received royal titles and positions in the line of succession, rankings entirely dependent on the legitimacy of how they entered the world. So, if Anonymous is telling the truth, were royal protocols quietly ignored? Were documents adjusted without scrutiny? Did palace officials already have suspicions? And if so, what actions did they take? This is more than a scandal, it borders on a constitutional crisis. Even Sir Edward Lane, the late Queen's longtime press secretary known for his rare public comments, described the situation as unprecedented. His warning was direct. The issue isn't surrogacy itself, it's the deception surrounding it. That statement has sent shockwaves through the institution. This controversy doesn't just threaten Harry and Meghan, it endangers the monarchy's most vital resource: public trust, something that, once broken, is nearly impossible to restore. Everything began with a woman stepping forward anonymous, claiming she carried two royal children, a woman never meant to be seen publicly. Yet now, she stands in the spotlight, armed with documents, ultrasound records aligned with royal timelines, financial links to unexpected individuals, a troubling NDA, and a readiness to take a public DNA test. Meanwhile, Harry is reportedly struggling, Meghan remains silent, their PR team is motionless, and the palace is re-examining rules written centuries ago. Everything is shifting and escalating toward a confrontation no one is prepared for. Anonymous has more interviews coming, major networks are circling, and lawyers are bracing for impact. If this is the end of the Sussex fairy tale, it won't conclude with glamour, it will end under harsh lights with testimony, legal consequences, and no escape. The storm hasn't just arrived, it has already begun.